Today is a very important episode, guys, so please bear with me if it will take a bit of time, a bit longer than usual. So you can see now the chart of Bitcoin price with a few lines which serve as envelope function for the tops and the bottoms of the price. And those curves define the cycles in the Bitcoin price. You see the small cycle number 1, 2, 3, 4. Considering the halving events in the middle of the cycle. And first thing what they say is, of course, the fact that the cycles become longer and longer, and the increase in the additive part of the price after each and every cycle becomes smaller and smaller, partially because of the absolute delta on the halving is also less with each new halving. In fact, you can merge these two cycles and have like 1200 days. Here will be 1500. Then the last one will be like 1800. It will not be in the middle of 2023, but somewhere in the middle of 2022 or in the end of that year. So still pretty far from now. And you can see already that at the current stage we are going faster than it was expected. However, there is a similar function which follows the general trend in the logarithmic scale of the price of Bitcoin. It is called long-term nonlinear regression curve, and the red line is like the main trend and orange lines are the deviation from the main trend. So what you can see here is basically very similar to those cyclic behavior of the price in terms of the fact that the speed of this move becomes slower. But the very important point here is this main red line over here, and I would like to point out the particular areas of this curve when the price reacted with this curve here and here and here and here as well, and here too, and in fact in the last crash as well. So in the period of the bear market, this curve serves as a resistance. So you see the price bounce off of that, and then eventually when the price finally goes through that and holds above that, this line starts to serve as a support. The same in this cycle, and you see that at the moment the price is basically trying to break this line. You may remember that we drew this rising and descending channels, and in this period of the market evolution it's actually very close to this nonlinear regression curve, but the price basically recently was pulled back from this line, and now we are hovering around this top of this channel. I would also want to point out the importance of those points. If you look at the RSI, for instance, when the price surpassed this point, you see the RSI is at the peak. In fact, this peak is even higher than the peak of the top of the price later. The same happened in the next cycle. You see the price surpassed this line and we have the RSI at the maximum. In fact, this maximum is actually again a little bit higher than the top of the price in the end of 2017. What should be noted is that this series of the peaks is lower than this series of the peaks. So you may expect that the new series of the peaks should be lower than the previous one and be somewhere at this area. So if and when the price will go above that, we may see the new bull market happening with a new phase, like this much faster phase than we saw so far. And without making any sophisticated analysis, just let's translate this period of the price action to our current situation, expecting first scenario when the price will not be able to surpass this line and we will continue to stay below that. So it would mean that we will continue to trade within this channel for a while, and then the next attempt, maybe around here, it's actually not necessary to be the same, will lead the price to this extremely bullish condition. And like technically it could reach $300,000 or even more, like almost $1 million, but all that will happen rather fast. Like this is August 2020. But again, you would see that although it falls pretty nicely with the nonlinear regression curve behavior, those peaks are much higher, the peaks which are pointed out by this curve. So this assumption may not be exactly correct. So now let's assume that we will break this curve from the first attempt, or at least behave like we did here in the previous market. So this would give us something like that. You see this peak follows pretty nicely with this curve. Second, we will still have a support at the bottom of this channel, so looks pretty reasonable, especially considering the speed of the evolution of the price right now and the parabolic condition of the overall market price evolution during this period of time. So this will lead us in the end of this year, which is absolutely crazy, to the level of something like $50,000. Okay, of course you can change this a little bit, so again you can get a little bit different value, but anyway, new all-time high will be already in this year. I don't say that this will happen, but this may happen due to the history evolution. And of course, again, this will be against overall expectation of the shorter cycle of the price action over here. The only thing which I can add that it may be extended with something like this eventually. So we have a mini cycle right here, and this would be much more reasonable. But of course, all that just speculation based on the previous price action, so don't quote me on that. Now, let's move to Coinbase and see what is happening right now. So if you look at the weekly time frame and turn on moving averages, you would see that we have this last week candlestick, which looks pretty much likely to be a doji if the price will return to something like $7,000. If it will be actually below $7,000, it will be the red reversal doji after all that bullish period of time. And then, considering all the resistance above this price, you may expect exactly the correction which everybody are calling for like 20, 30, 50% from the current price. And also you should see that this candle actually found support on the 100 weeks moving average, and it is not necessarily to be the support forever. If you look at the daily time frame, you will see that we are right now, of course, above all the moving averages here, main moving averages, and we had two golden crosses before, which technically puts us in a condition of the bull market based like on the textbook's definitions. But when you have these golden crosses, when you have this first rally, you would expect that the price may have, and especially after you see this parabolic behavior, the price may return to the area where we had this first or a second golden cross. Probably the second one because it's the most powerful one. And this is the area of around $4,500. At the same time, there's a lot of support below this price. Of course, as we already mentioned, this is weekly moving average. There are a few daily moving averages. There is also the support trend line, which was the top of the channel in which the price have been moving before this parabolic rise. So in fact, this trend line is somewhere around $6,000 if we'll just go here immediately. And this would bring us to the zone which I pointed out in a couple of videos ago, the zone where I would probably buy. And it is between this trend line and 50 weeks moving average. There is another support which is based on these lows which were touching the resistance at this point. But now indeed it may be working as a support. And it was pointed out by the lady on the channel Dope Forever. She pointed out that if there would be no that crash because of the fork war, hash power war, then the price will probably go sideways, something like that, holding this support, and then will be somewhere here at this moment, going really slowly but without major drops. So you may indeed expect that this line will work as support as well. So now then, I would say there's a third zone here, which is basically the point of the decision whether the price will go to the correction one another or maybe potentially different one, or we will actually bounce off this zone or maybe some higher and then continue to grow and going sideways, try to test this regression curve once again or something like that. Moreover, if you'll actually look at the bottom to the top and draw this Fibonacci retracement levels, then you would see that this zone is somewhere at the 38% of Fibonacci retracement from the top. This zone is something like half of the Fibonacci retracement, and this zone, or actually it's not necessarily to go exactly here, but if you remember, this is the golden cross of 100 and 200 days moving averages. So in actually the price may find a support on this line, which will be higher, and it will be 61.8% Fibonacci retracement. And in addition to that, that would be the area of the huge volume around here, which also may work as a support. So you may see that on one hand, there are many lines and levels of support in this area, and it's really hard to go through them to the lower values. At the same time, there are plenty of reasons which drive the price to test those previous supports, to test these zones, and it's really not clear right now which factor will dominate. What is making me a little bit more bullish at the moment is the fact that, again, yesterday we had this drop, but it didn't initiate like a panic sell to this zone at least. We didn't test this level, we didn't go that low. And on the shorter time scale, we actually have higher highs, higher lows, although we need to make a higher high on the higher time scale as well, because right now we still may go exactly right here and form a lower low and lower high. So what I would encourage you to do is to look at this zone and to trade it accordingly. Of course, everything which I say is my personal opinion, guys, not a financial advice, but this is what I see in the market right now. What are those possibilities? And in fact, like historically, you would probably assume that something like this will happen. It's just a matter of time, and the higher will go, the more likely and the deeper will fall. But we all know that this is crypto and everything can happen, so we have only probabilities, we don't have any certainty. And that is it for today. I hope it was useful. Thank you for watching.